You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Friday, November 8th. We are back for another preview show. The bye week is behind us, and the 49ers are looking to get back in the win column after their bye week. They're feeling fresh. They're getting Christian McCaffrey back, so it should be a pretty good week for them. I know they're feeling pumped, but joining me to preview this matchup against the Bucs is Kyle Posey of Niners Nation. KP, how you doing, man?
Doing well. It's hoping to hit the ground running like the Niners have over the past couple seasons out of the bye week. So let's get after it.
Let's get after it. And before we get into the preview here, let's talk about some of these injuries. And we have our resident injury expert here, Coach Dezi. Dezi, how you doing?
Hey, guys. It's time for football again. Did you enjoy your bye week?
I sure did. Yeah. It's nice to watch all the other teams and not have to stress about your own.
100%. It was a great Monday, so we didn't have to worry about anything.
For sure. The same can't be said for the Bucs, though. We'll definitely talk about that. But let's get into some of these injuries. Of course, for the players who are going to be out, Mooney Ward, of course, for the personal reason. Chris Conley, hamstring. Kevin Givens, groin. And then the big one here, Dezi, I think there's a few actually. Christian McCaffrey, Achilles, he's questionable. All signs point to him playing. In fact, Kyle said he is expected to play. Deebo Samuel, rib oblique. He was rocking the blue no contact jersey throughout this week. And then Nick Bosa dealing with the hip pointer. He's questionable. Malik Mustapha, calf injury, very vague. A lot of questions around that. And then John Feliciano, who's making his return this season with a knee injury. But of course, Dezi, I think we got to start off by asking about Christian McCaffrey and what we could expect. By all accounts this week, it seems like he looked like his old self. He felt great. He's rested those Achilles. So now what?
Now we just see what happens. I mean, right now it's, if he's feeling good and the videos that we've seen of him, he looks good. He looks springy. I don't really see a deficit in his range of motion of his ankle at all. It doesn't seem like he's doing any kind of movements that are compensating, for the injury. So it looks good. So let's go with it. The question is, hopefully there'll be some limited time. I don't want him out there taking all the snaps. Hopefully they'll rotate in other running backs. We'll just say that. We'll see. Mason's a little banged up. Maybe we get some Garendo action in there. Maybe we see, Deebo's banged up. So I don't know what this is going to look like, but hopefully Christian doesn't have a big workload coming back. And he looks, I'm hoping that he looks good. I'm going to be at the game. So I want to see a good return of Christian McCaffrey. That would be epic. And then we'll just see. We'll have to take it game by game after that, because as we've said before, an Achilles tendonitis is one of those sneaky things that you might feel good one game and then it can come back and get reinflamed. So we're just going to take it game by game, faithful, and we're just going to be hopeful that he continues to look good with each week.
One thing I wanted to ask you is about the workload, because I do have some concerns, but it seems like the team is not as concerned. And when you talk about bringing him back and did you guys see this? Hold on. Yeah, you guys could see this screen, right? Okay, yeah. So Kyle was asked earlier this week about this, right? Like if he felt that the heavy workload last year had anything to do with him dealing with this now or, these past few weeks. And he said they don't believe that. Christian McCaffrey doesn't believe that and all these things. Are you buying that, Dezi?
I mean, it's part of the equation. What was really telling was Christian McCaffrey's dad. When Ed McCaffrey came out and said that he's kind of, this guy that doesn't have an off switch, right? Like he's doing all these extra reps and things beyond what's happening on the practice field. So again, if you're not following the prescription of what the strength and conditioning, the therapist and all of those are telling you, like, hey, these are the reps we need you to take, and we don't really need you to do all this extra work. The question then lies, was it part of him himself? I mean, his own father kind of ratted him out and was like, yeah, he's a product of his own, undoing. So yeah, we don't see every running back who gets all these reps have bilateral Achilles tendonitis, right? I mean, it's part of the equation. Was it everything? I don't think I'd rest my hat on that. I think maybe, him not allowing things to cool down in the off season might have had something to do with it as well.
And as far as Nick Bosa with the hip pointer, he's been limited. In fact, Shanahan said extremely limited in practice this week. And he said he wasn't sure how much Bosa will play on Sunday. Tell us a little bit about like hip pointers and how that could limit someone like Nick Bosa.
Yeah, so a hip pointer it's actually around the pelvis. So you have your pelvic bone, and actually, if you watch Steph's beautiful new video on where she's doing her Nick Bosa imitation, her hands are actually on the area where the hip pointer is. So it's your hip bones. Like if you put your hands on your hips, that bone that your hand rests on is where the hip pointer is. And there's some soft tissue attachments there, both from the thigh that come up and attach there and from your core tissues. So your obliques and stuff can connect in there. So you can actually get a hip pointer just from a tackle and just hitting that bone and that insertion site there and inflame it. Or it could even be like an issue where you're doing an active movement and you can actually have something called an avulsion fracture, where you actually, the muscle contracts so hard that it pulls tissue away from the bone, and a piece of the bone fragments and pops off with it. So you can see that type of hip pointer too. So I don't know to what degree this is. And, that would depend on what we would expect from him moving forward. So these things can go a couple of different ways, but I would not expect, a lot of production out of him. But we'll see. It could limit him. We'll see.
Yeah, like we said, he's questionable, so we'll see if he is active for that game on Sunday, and if so, just how much he ends up playing for this one. Malik Mustapha, like that one was a little scary because it happened late in the week that he was added on the injury report with that calf injury, and we didn't really get a lot of information on it. Like, okay, what could he possibly be dealing with? That's a calf injury. He's questionable, so it seems like he could play, and it seemed like he was at practice today, so maybe that's a good sign. But what's something that would worry you regarding Mustapha with this unknown calf injury?
I think the most concerning calf injury, who else on this list was listed as a calf injury to start, right? And it was not full disclosure that it was an Achilles tendonitis. So, you worry. And of course, I think he tweeted out or Instagrammed or whatever a message that was kind of like, it's not that serious. So I'm going to lean on that and say maybe it's just a calf strain, maybe it's something simple, and it's something that can be a quick fix. And we do get to see him out there, whether it's this week or next week. That depends on how severe it is and what he looks like in the warm-ups and stuff, and how he looked on practice.
All right. So, yeah, we'll see what shakes out for the 49ers and some of these injuries come Sunday. But Dezi, enjoy that game. Should be a pretty good one. And we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Anybody going to that game, make sure you reach out to me. I'd love to catch up with the faithful at Raymond James this Sunday.
Awesome. And stay safe out there.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Peace. All right, KP. So here's something like I wanted to share, because I think this speaks to just how great of an organization the 49ers are. So for those of you that don't know, Mooney Ward, who lost his 1-year-old daughter last week during the bye week, tragically, the services are in Dallas today, and a lot of the staff, the support staff for the 49ers, actually made the trip out there to join him. And for the YouTube viewers here, we're looking at a picture of that staff, John Lynch included, with Mooney Ward at the service. So I think this was really cool for them to do. And of course, like, we continue to feel terrible for Mooney Ward and his family, and continue to pray for their strength during this tough time. As we mentioned, he's going to be out on Sunday, understandably.
Yeah, I think it just kind of shows you, how close knit these guys are. So when you think of a job, we think like 9 to 5, but these guys are working together like 16 hours a day. all the road trips. Can only imagine like the stories and everything that goes into their day to day. So I think that just tells you the tight knit brotherhood that they have. It's pretty cool that, how I'm sure it was easy for them to go and support the loss and the tragic event. So yeah, you love seeing that.
Yeah, there's some solace in knowing that the 49ers staff has done a great job at handling a couple of tragedies that have come their players' way this year. So I thought that was cool to
If
share.
he needed to take like a month off, take a month off.
Yeah, absolutely as much time as he needs. I think everyone would definitely understand that. So yeah, hoping for the best for Mooney Ward going forward there. As far as the Bucs injury report, they're also dealing with some injuries, right? So Mike Evans going to be out. We already know that Chris Godwin, on IR, he's going to be out. So they're two top receivers, and they're really good ones are going to be out for this game, as they have been for the last couple of games for this Bucs team. They also have a couple of questionable players, including one of their other wide receivers, Jalen McMillan, with a hamstring injury. Both safeties, Tyke Smith and Jordan Whitehead, also questionable for this game. But I mean, the injuries I think could loom large for both teams in this game. How are you feeling about the Bucs, who have been competitive even with some of the injuries they've been dealing with?
Yeah, you can't count them out. They're a really good offense. How effective they'll be without Evans and Godwin, that's a completely different story. McMillan has 15 targets in the last 2 games. So that is going to be a factor if he can't suit up. So I think the injuries definitely offset each other, especially if Bosa can't go, and assuming that Mooney won't play.
Yep, definitely could play a factor in this game. But let's look at the Bucs offense, of course, considering some of those injuries, right? So they got at wide receiver now Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard, Raheem Jarrett, their tight end, Cade Otton, who we'll talk about probably a little bit more today. Tristan Wirfs, their left tackle, probably one of the best in the game right now. Ben Bredesen, Grant Barton, Cody Mock, Luke Godecki, I think that's how you say his name, the right tackle, and Baker, who has been playing some good football this season. I don't think people are really considering just how much him being competitive has helped them out, even without their top 2 receivers. And of course, Rachaad White and Bucky Irving, the two-headed rushing attack that they have. So that's where I want to start, KP. I want to start with the Bucs running backs, because to me, this is a little unfavorable to the 49ers. And I want to preface that by saying I understand the 49ers run defense hasn't been that bad, but there's something about the Bucs running backs that I think could be a little tough for the 49ers to defend, because each of them do different things well, right? So Rachaad White, 31 receptions, ranks 5th among running backs, 252 receiving yards, ranks 6th among running backs, 3 receiving touchdowns, ranks tied for 1st among running backs, 11 yards per reception, ranks 3rd among all running backs. All that to say, he's pretty good out of the backfield and being just that extra element, that extra check down outlet for Baker Mayfield, which he absolutely takes. And once he has the ball in his hands, he can make you pay for it. Bucky Irving, on the other hand, it's kind of become I wouldn't say they're lead back, they're really 1A and 1B, but Irving has kind of been the workhorse out of the backfield. 5 yards per carry, 419 rushing yards, which leads the team, by the way. So he has more rushing yards than White, even with White starting games. And that's with him not getting more than 14 carries in a game this season. His career high, he's a rookie, his career high this season has been 14 carries. And even with that, he leads the team in rushing yards. So pretty impressive by Bucky Irving. How do you feel like they can pose a threat to the 49ers defense?
So I think fundamentally the Bucs aren't set up well to run the ball. I think that every Rachaad White carry is a victory for the 49ers. He's just not a very explosive player. I think he was averaging around 3 yards per carry. Doesn't really break many long runs. is the type of running back that does not hurt the 49ers. And I feel the exact opposite for Bucky Irving. Like, I feel like he's the kind of guy that's spacey, shifty, has the speed to cut it back and hit the home run. Like, that's the guy that they really need to contain, because they can do well against him for 4 plays, and then boom, he breaks off like a 56-yard or whatever. So he's definitely somebody they're going to have to keep under wraps. They have been trending in the right way just as far as their defensive metrics go. So you would think they'll be able to control the line of scrimmage. Still, though, like when it comes to athletes like Irving, he is very difficult to stop.
Yeah, I think Irving's the one I'm more worried about between the two. It's no coincidence that Rachaad White's best numbers are him as a receiver, like him catching the ball, right? Irving's
and
the guy
to me, most of that is just like when they're playing catch up.
True. Yeah, that as well. So yeah, I think it's just something I'm a little cautious of in this matchup. Like, don't let Bucky Irving get going. He could get a big play if you let him. So definitely something to keep an eye on here in this game. Another one is Cade Otton, their tight end. I'm a little not worried about Otton, but like this is another one that I'm like cautious about. The 49ers have been pretty good against tight ends this season. A lot of that has to do with Fred Warner being as good as he is. They're 8th in DVOA against tight ends. But the last 3 weeks, he's been on a tear. He has 25 catches last 3 games, 258 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. And he's become their main weapon since Evans and Godwin have been out. And he's a really good player. In a game against the Niners, I don't know if this was from last season. I have to imagine it is. 49 receiving yards and a touchdown. So he didn't do much in that game. But like I said, I think I would be more so worried about the volume for Cade Otton than just him having like some monster game. But he's definitely going to be peppered with targets.
Well, it's pretty clear that, him and Baker have a good rapport together, just looking at the numbers. So 11 targets, 10 targets, 10 targets in the last 3 games. Like, that's the one passing threat that Baker trusts. So, like, that's who's going to get the ball. But the reason I would, kind of push back against it being not so favorable with what Liam Cohen, the Bucs OC, has been doing since Godwin and Mike Evans went down, is just going more towards these heavy personnel packages. So, like, they're funneling passes toward the middle. And when you do that, that means you're throwing the ball to number 54, and that is not what you want to do. So, in that sense, hey, if that's how you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us by throwing it, by getting over on Fred Warner, then let it be. But at the same time, if you just look at his numbers, he's been very good over the past 3 weeks. And most of it comes when, hey, like the Bucs need to make a play and then they find ways to get it to Otton. I think Baker deserves credit for that too. But he's a tough matchup. I don't really know what he does well, but he's always just finds a way to get the ball. So credit to him.
Yeah, and Baker, actually, I think it was this week that he talked about Otton and just how he's good against man and just like getting open in man. And then also against zone, he could find that soft spot in the zone. So that's what's been working for them. And then you speak to the rapport as well. I think it's clear that they have really good chemistry out there. Another thing, red zone target share this season, Cade Otton, 27.5%. So definitely looking his way in the red zone. Definitely something the 49ers should be aware of going into this game. And yeah, I mean, we'll see if the Bucs try to continue to target the middle of the field. I agree that might not go so well this game. Maybe a good time for them to make an adjustment there against the Niners, but we'll see if they do. So yeah, Cade Otton is someone to be aware of in this one. And on the defensive side for the Bucs, I mean, they got Josh Hayes, Tyke Smith, Zion McCollum, Antoine Winfield, and Jordan Whitehead. Their safeties, Levante David, their linebacker, KJ Britt, another linebacker. And the guys I really want to focus on here on the defensive line, Vita Vea, Elijah Cansey, Yaya Diaby, those guys have been pretty good. Yaya Diaby, I think, leads the team in pressures. Vita Vea is Vita Vea. And that's who I want to talk about, because to me, even though he hasn't had, crazy numbers this year, he's still, I think, a threat. He had a sack and 3 total pressures when the Bucs played the 49ers last year. And he's coming off a 2-sack game against the Chiefs on Monday night. So he is the Bucs' leading sacker this year. He has 5. And yeah, I still think like he's a matchup issue for anyone that he'll be matching up against in this game. So just something that I'm a little cautious of this week.
Yeah, you have to be aware of where Vay is at all times, right? Like he's a game wrecker. We saw what he did to the 49ers interior line last year. We saw what he did against the Chiefs last week. Like the Chiefs have one of the best interior offensive lines in the NFL, and Vay wins. Like he always wins. And when he wins, it's like 3rd and 1. Like when they need to get off the field is when he wins. So that's probably the most annoying part. He's a very good player. I am interested to see how the 49ers attack. Maybe it's more off tackle or outside runs because when it was Mason, they actually were leaning on more inside runs. So maybe that's the change we see. Just keep evolving back to what you were previously. And that means outside runs to McCaffrey.
Yeah, hey, there you go. Yeah, we hadn't mentioned this guy since the injury report we were talking about earlier, but now is probably a good time to get to our favorables, and that is Christian McCaffrey. KP, you always know like where I'm going next, and I love that because it's just such an easy segue. So Christian McCaffrey going up against this Bucs defense definitely feels like a gimme. I mean, yards per attempt, the Bucs are 28th. They're allowing 4.9 yards per attempt right now. As far as rushing yards allowed per game, 130.8. That ranks 19th. If you look at just their last 3 games, though, the Bucs have been awful, even worse. They ranked 29th in that span, allowing an average of 165.7 rushing yards per game in their last 3. So this is shaping up to be a good debut, I think, for Christian McCaffrey, if any of this is any indication.
The Bucs give up the 4th most passing yards to running backs in the NFL. They are the 9th worst against running backs in DVOA. And if you just think about what the 49ers did all of 2023, was like they had no problems moving the ball in between the 20s. But once it got into the red zone, hey, 23, it's on you. Like now is your time. And he came through over and over and over again. I believe he had like 21 touchdowns or something like that. I feel like most of those came in the red zone. So Kyle Shanahan finally gets his weapon, his passing weapon, his 3rd down weapon, his red zone weapon back that he hasn't had for the first 9 games. I think it is a very favorable matchup. So I would imagine they're going to isolate KJ Britt, the other linebacker, the non-Levante David linebacker. Britt has been targeted 17 times this year. He's given up 13 catches for nearly 10 yards per reception. So I imagine, again, after a half a season without being able to throw to your running back, and now you get the best running back out of the backfield, it's going to be a good opportunity for Christian McCaffrey to have a good day.
And not just Christian, but I think the offense. Like I've been saying all week, almost ad nauseum, that I think McCaffrey will go a long way to improving 49ers 3rd down conversion percentage, 49ers touchdown rate in the red zone. And yeah, like this stat came from Andrew Pasquini on Niners Nation. 18 of McCaffrey's 21 total touchdowns in 2023 came from the red zone. So you think about that and just how important he was to this team in the red zone last season. You got to imagine him being back, him going up against this Bucs defense. It just feels like a recipe for improvements for the 49ers. And against the Bucs last season, McCaffrey had a pretty modest day, like 21 carries, 71 rush yards, but 5 catches, 25 receiving yards too, and a receiving touchdown. I'd be fine with a stat line like that from McCaffrey in his first game back. So I think definitely seems like it could be a good day for the 49ers. And you know what? I think in turn, because Christian McCaffrey is back, I think Brock Purdy is going to be better, right? And the Bucs defense has allowed opposing quarterbacks to score 3 or more touchdowns in 4 of their last 5 games. In fact, the only quarterback who did not was Spencer Rattler. And I
Who's not
think
a real
that
person.
makes sense. That makes plenty of sense, right? So Bucks run the most zone defense of any team. And as we know, Purdy pretty good against zone coverage. So I'm thinking him just being more comfortable because he has Christian McCaffrey back, him being more in a rhythm. I think he's, again, there's a recipe for Purdy to cook as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at how they came out of the bye week last year, they were hitting on all cylinders after kind of slumping their way into the bye week. I wouldn't say they slumped their way into the bye week after the Dallas game, but obviously they left a lot of yards and points on the board on the field against Kansas City. This time, now they go into the bye week and they come out of the bye week facing a team that has just been giving up yardage in gobs. Like, it's been pretty amazing how easily teams have been able to move the ball, and they've been able to score on them too. So think about what Brock does well. He throws to spots, right? He's an anticipation thrower. So against zone, that is going to be the best way to do it. The Bucks are one of the teams that blitz the most in the NFL, but when you blitz, you better get there. And if you don't get there, that means there are a lot of vacated areas in those zones. So there's a reason they're allowing a ton of explosive plays, and this is not the offense that you want to do that against. So for as much as they blitz, they're about 17th in pressure rate. So they try to blitz because they can't get home with their 4 pass rush, and it just leaves a lot of holes in the back end for people to make up, and they just haven't been able to do that so far. So as you said, it's a very good landing spot out of the bye for the 49ers offense.
Yeah, and in 2 games against the Bucks, Purdy has been pretty good, and that is with them, being blitz heavy even then in those 2 games, as I recall. 80.4 completion percentage against the Bucks, 518 yards, 6 total touchdowns. So again, I feel pretty bullish about Brock Purdy looking a little bit better, looking a little like his old self in this game against
those
the Bucks.
Were better Buccaneers defenses too, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. They're definitely not as good as they were last year and even the year prior. So that makes it even more impressive. That makes me even more confident that Purdy should have a better day coming this Sunday. And I think George Kittle will be a beneficiary of that. He's been on a tear as well. I think you can argue actually, I don't even think you can argue. George Kittle has been the best tight end this season, the most consistent week in and week out. And the Bucs defense haven't been so good against tight ends. They've given up the 3rd most yards to tight ends, 64.8 a game, and 5th most touchdowns a game. So 0.5 is kind of a toss-up. And I don't know, I feel pretty confident about Kittle getting at least a touchdown in this game because he's been pretty heavy on the scoring lately. And to bring the point home here, the Bucs against notable tight ends, they faced pretty good tight ends these last 3 weeks. Travis Kelce last week, 14 catches, 100 yards. Kyle Pitts the week prior, 4 catches, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mark Andrews the week before that, 4 catches, 41 yards, 2 touchdowns. So they're definitely struggling against some good tight ends. Well, a good tight end is coming to town on Sunday.
Yeah, and they're giving up a lot of receptions just over the course of the season too. You mentioned the yardage that they're giving up. So they're averaging over 7 yards per reception. Tight ends are against this Bucs defense. So when you talk about the blitz, when you talk about the holes in the defense, all Kittle will really have to do is, just settle down in some of those soft spots. And he's actually been very good at that this season, I feel like. So his rapport with Purdy is going to go a long way. And I think Purdy having seen a Bulls defense in the past will go a long way as well to the 49ers offensive success. So between Purdy, between Kittle, I think, this is a advantageous matchup for a lot of people on this side of the ball. But I would imagine out of a bye, without trying to put too much on McCaffrey's plate, you're going to lean on a guy like Kittle, who's just been as consistent as it gets this year.
Yeah, for sure. And just one point like that about the Bucs defense that I didn't really have anywhere to put it in my slides, but I think it's important because the 49ers like as we know, have been struggling in the red zone. I already talked about the fact that I think Christian McCaffrey will help that, but the Bucs defense should help that as well, because in their last 3 games, they're allowing opposing offenses to score on 90% of all red zone trips. Again, last 3 games, that's pretty crazy. So
It's wild.
I think we are going to see a different version of this 49ers offense coming out of the bye week. Like, it's just all shaping up that way. If we don't, then again, like I've been saying, like we got bigger problems, right? What I say before the bye, if they lose against the Cowboys, we got bigger problems, but they didn't lose against the Cowboys, so you live to see another day. And so I think this is a good challenge for the team, but I feel pretty strongly that they'll be able to get it done. Another favorable that I didn't have time to make a slide for is the rest advantage that the 49ers are going to have over the Bucs. I mean, we know that Tampa Bay played a Monday night game that went into OT against the Chiefs. Their defense played 83 snaps. Their offense played 55, but like 83 snaps is something you can't really ignore. That's the most any team or any defense that has had to play this season. And that's also when you add in the fact that the 49ers have like +8 rest days of advantage there over the Bucs coming off their bye week. I think that'll also factor in. The 49ers do have to travel for this game, so they'll have that going against them. But, I do think that just Monday night OT, like that is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I would say the bye week would offset that travel spot too. Obviously, historically, teams, they just start slower when they're off a bye week or when they have to cross multiple time zones. But again, you would think the 49ers are more eager to get up and play, especially, after the first half went for them. So like they're as healthy as they're going to be. And the Bucs off an overtime game when not just those 83 plays, but those were like 35 runs, and not just against an average team, right? We're talking about a physical Chiefs team. So they're on both sides of the ball. They're going to be tired more than likely. So again, it's a good spot for the Niners and McCaffrey, whether it's Mason, whoever it may be, to like establish their identity coming out right away. And that's where I think the rest advantage, because we should see some tired legs from Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think so. And that's why, like, I wouldn't mind the 49ers continuing to have some carries for Jordan Mason, because I think he's just one of those like punishing backs that, like, if you're tired, he's going to make you pay for it. So if there are those opportunities for Jordan Mason, I know that, the Bucs will probably not want to tackle him. But all right, let's get to score prediction. So earlier in the week, I think it was Tuesday, right? Like, I didn't feel so confident about the 49ers winning this game. And I don't know if it's just the good vibes of Christian coming back. Like, since then, I've built up more confidence as the week has gone on. Let's just say that. So now I am predicting the 49ers to win. I think the 49ers go over 30 points, because like I've been saying, like, I feel like they've been on the cusp of something with, scoring more in the red zone. Like I said, I think they'll have those opportunities to punch it in this one. So I think the 49ers get 34 points. And I think the Bucs, the last couple games, they've scored 24 points, I think. But I think the 49ers keep them to 22. I admire the Bucs and their fight. Like we said, Baker Mayfield, he's been playing pretty well. But, I'm going to go 34-22. What about you, KP?
So I think in the last calendar year, Baker's been one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Like the way that he competes, the way that he always just swings back, keeps his offenses in the game. Like, they're going to score, especially if the 49ers don't have their best cornerback or their best player in Nick Bosa. So like, it'll be difficult to overcome even off a bye week. I think Sam Okwonu has been really good, and he's going to play a pivotal role in the second half of the season. But like, he's not going – you don't want him to be your 1A pass rusher. And Leonard Floyd, he hasn't been, I guess, as productive as you'd want. So knowing that, like, it's going to be difficult to hold the Bucs, because nobody's really stopped them offensively. And I know they're down Mike Evans. I know they're down Chris Godwin. But, again, I feel like counting or betting against Baker in that sense. There's no evidence to suggest that anybody has stopped him. So I would imagine the Bucs score around 17-20, but I just don't see many paths to them stopping the 49ers on the other side of the ball. Like the way that it's set up, they don't really stop the run well. Like they stop the run well up the middle because Vita Vea, but their other defensive tackle gets pushed out of the way so easily. It's I would honestly just set my protection or set the play away from Vita, and you're going to have a lot of success. Their other defensive end outside of Joe Tryon, not a very good run defender either. Against in the passing game, their second level defenders should not be able to cover Kittle and McCaffrey. We're going to probably see the best version of Jennings because he's healthy now. And remember, during the first half of the season, how effective he was, during the first month of the season. The one area where I think the 49ers defense should have success is because Baker is hobbled a bit, right? He has a toe injury. He didn't practice all week. So if you remove his mobility, like that's 189 yards and 12 touchdowns. He keeps a lot of plays alive just by scrambling and running around back there. So if he's not able to be mobile in the pocket, that's going to bode very well for the 49ers. So maybe take away a possession, maybe take away a score because of Baker's ineffectiveness in that sense. But I do like appear on betting podcasts, and I gave out the 49ers team total over as one of like the best bets. It's 27.5. Like they scored 30 points in 4 games without McCaffrey. They scored 30 points in 4 games, being banged up quite a bit and being banged up at very key positions with very key players out. This is going to be the best that they've looked. McCaffrey is 100% worth, points. I would assume that they score 34 points. So I'm going to say 34-17. I don't really think it's that close. I can see the Bucs scoring, late in the game, just like most teams do after the 49ers take their foot off the gas. But I think we're going to see the best version of the 49ers offense, and it'll be good.
Yeah, no, I like the bold prediction there, and one that isn't really that bold, right? If you think about everything going in the 49ers' favor leading up to this week. And yeah, we haven't even talked about Jawan Jennings, but yeah, I mean, that's huge too, because I think this is going to be his first game back without Brandon Ayuk. I think, we've seen what he can do with more targets, more opportunity. And so, yeah, I think he
performed
ready
like a
to
wide
take on
receiver
them.
one during the first month of the season.
Yeah, I'm kind of expecting that. I think people forget about him, and even I do sometimes. And I obviously overshadowed by the fact that McCaffrey's coming back. But yeah, I mean,
healthy Jennings, healthy-ish McCaffrey, healthier Debo, healthy Kittle, off a bye week. So now you don't have to have Ricky Pearsall in that wide receiver one role. He gets to, you still get to slowly but surely sprinkle him into your offense. They have a multiple weapons, can use McCaffrey as a slot receiver, can use Debo out of the backfield. So you have your full complement of weapons in that sense where you can use multiple players in multiple spots. They haven't really been able to do that. And being multiple is what makes them so good offensively, which is why I think we're going to see a lot of points. And I think we're going to see Shanahan kind of just let loose a little bit because he has McCaffrey back there.
Yeah, for sure. And then, yeah, Corey has some – not concerns, but like he's just saying it's hard for him to expect CMC to be all the way back. He hasn't played since the Super Bowl. I mean, that's fair, but like we're talking about Christian freaking McCaffrey here. Like this is a different kind of
decent player.
Yeah, man, this is a different kind of athlete right here. So I think that's what we're banking on, and I think just all the reports we've seen from like the last week and a half that he looks like himself. The video clips seem to indicate that as well. So yeah, I don't think it's too crazy to expect that he might hit the ground running. And even if you get 70-80% of Christian McCaffrey, like that's still really good. So yeah,
think about it. Our exposure to one full season of Christian McCaffrey is 2,000 yards from scrimmage and 20 touchdowns. There's no reason to believe, assuming the 49ers wouldn't put him out there if he wasn't fully healthy, that he wouldn't hit the ground running.
Yeah. And, fair counterpoint by Corey. Like Trent also, was held out 2 months and it affected him. Yeah, that's true. But there's been a ramp up for Christian McCaffrey, so little different.
Did you hear on Sherm? So he was on Sherm's podcast, and he said that he could have played, and who knows like how truthful that is, but he did say he could have played against the Cowboys before the bye week. So if it was the wild card game, maybe he would have suited up. But now you get those 2 extra weeks. I'm sure he's just champing at the bit to get out there. He looked lively. He looked springy in the practice videos that we were able to see. And I would imagine, with respect to Trent Williams, the 36 to 37-year-old is going to take a little more time to get acclimated than the running back who is like a superhuman athlete. And of course, Trent Williams is as well. But I've heard some crazy stories about the athletic feats that McCaffrey has dating back to high school. So I think it's very fair to assume he's going to hit the ground running.
Let me ask you this last question before we get out of here. With Mooney Ward out, who are you expecting to be playing on the outside when you got 3 corners out there? So I think Renardo Green, of course. I'm thinking Lenore will be at the slot still. And you think Yadam will be on the outside?
Yeah. So when he missed a series, I believe it was against the Cowboys, Isaac just took over for Ward. They left Lenore in the slot, and then it was Renardo Green on the defense's right, which is the easiest way. That way you don't have to shuffle a bunch of bodies. You just put the veteran in for the veteran and let the rookie do the rookie things. But again, like the wide receiver matchups will help dictate a lot. Sterling Shepard in the slot, not the kind of receiver that really beats the 49ers. That's the guy you don't have to really worry about helping. And there's no real established effective route runners. Obviously, the drop off between Godwin and Evans is pretty steep. So it's a good matchup for the 49ers secondary. The pass defense is second, by the way, in DVOA, schedule adjusted efficiency. They've been very good. I don't think people understand that or give Nick Sorensen credit for that, but they've been arguably one of, if not the best passing defenses in the NFL. So a hobbled Baker without his top 2 weapons against one of the best pass defenses in the NFL, probably not a recipe for success.
Yeah, and I think this could be a good matchup for Renardo Green as well. Like I wouldn't be too worried about him in this matchup or any of the corners really. So yeah, I agree with you. I think, like I said, the biggest matchup for me as far as pass catchers go is Cade Otton. So they'll have their hands full with him. But KP, thank you so much for joining me. Dezi, thank you as well. She's probably out getting ready
she's
for
gone
her date
already.
tonight.
Her weekend started.
She gone.
Yeah.
But appreciate all of you that tuned in as well in the live chat. Audio listeners, make sure you leave a rating, leave a review. Make sure you like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And before I forget, make sure you guys check out KP's preview of this matchup on Niners Nation. It's called Deja Vu in Florida, coming out of the bye week. So make sure you guys check that out if you haven't yet. But all right, everyone, make sure you have a good and safe rest of your weekend or start of your weekend. For now, peace.